It's summertime and it's time for camp. Marriage Camp from the Stupendous Marriage Show.
Listen up, campers!
Well, hello there, marriage campers. It's another episode of the Stupendous Marriage Show, Marriage Camp. I'm Stu Gray.
Hey, I'm Lisa Gray.
All summer long, we'll be giving you tips and tricks and fun things for your marriage, a little bit different than the normal show. We'll be getting back to that soon, where we answer your emails about marriage, and we would love to get your question right now on air at stupendousmarriage.com. You can always send us your question. We would love to hear from you for an upcoming Stupendous Marriage Show.
Yeah, and throughout the summer, we've been trying to talk about specific topics: parenting, communication, mindset, teamwork, and even the sexy badge.
Today, we're going back to the communication badge. Something we talked about on a previous marriage camp session was your words, how they either build up or tear down. And we're going to think about it in a little different way today. Not just what we say between husband and wife, but what we say about them in a public place.
People are always listening. And so many times we will casually make a usually sarcastic comment to a friend about, oh yeah, husbands are just like that. Or yeah, I wish my husband would do this more. Or, anything in a negative way. It's really easy when you are around other people to kind of talk differently than you would if your spouse and you were talking privately. And I don't think we realize is when we're doing that, we are speaking things into motion. When we're sitting there saying, yeah, my husband does this all the time in a negative way. He can hear that. Your kids can hear that. And it goes into their minds to go like, wow, I really do that all the time, the husband might think, or the kids might think, wow, dad really does that all the time. He's a loser. You just don't understand the power of your words, even sarcastically and in a funny way to other people about your spouse or about your kiddos.
And on a scientific level, there's a brain thing that happens. And I'm no scientist by any means, but your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So let's say you got this negative thing floating in your head. You haven't said it out loud yet. Oh, my husband never does the dishes and that really ticks me off. And it's floating in there. Okay, you haven't said out loud. So you've got that neural thing going on in your brain. And then all of a sudden you say it out loud in front of someone or out there. Mm-hmm. And your brain has made this connection. It's like not just this thought that you have, renewed your mind. You haven't trained your brain in a different direction. You haven't changed that thought to something completely different. You've let it fester and manifest into something real. You've said it out loud and you've made this negative connection. So you've made this neural pathway in your brain. So now you can walk up and down that little path, if you want to think about it like that, more and more. And the more you think about that negative thing, the more you add to it, the more it snowballs, the more it grows out of control, the more negative thoughts you have, and it just multiplies and multiplies. And we've said it over and over again, what you focus on grows. And so if you're saying this out loud about your spouse, it's like, what's been going on in your brain for that to finally come out of your mouth?
There's a scripture that, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So even though we may not realize we are burdened with something, that something's really bothering us or agitating us, as soon as we start talking about it, we need to realize, hey, wait a minute, what's going on in my heart? What's happening inside that is now coming out? I remember years ago, I was invited to a girls' night out with a lot of ladies. I didn't know most of them. I just knew one who invited me. And we were having a good time sitting around, all talking, and the conversation unfortunately went in a really negative way. And several of the women started talking negative about their husbands. Almost like a negative husband bashing session started. And I was sitting there and I was like, what is happening? Like, I am not jumping into this conversation. So I literally zoned out during that part of the conversation. I actually watched TV because there was a sports something on, and I watched TV across the restaurant because I was like, I don't want this to go into my mind. I don't want to think about these things that these women are saying about their husbands. And when I came home that day, I'll never forget telling you thought it would be awesome because I was out for a girls' night, and I'd had a great time. And I came home and I said, all I want to do is shower. I just want to get the ickiness off of me that these women spoke about their husbands. And it was all in ha, 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 yeah, my husband does this. Oh, mine does too. It was in that kind of sarcastic, funny way. But I saw the power of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, don't say this about your husbands. And I don't want to think these things about my husband. And so I just really try to protect my mind from it. People so many times don't realize the power that they have in those conversations and speaking those words out loud.
One of the things that drives me crazy about advertising these days is the stupid dad commercials.
Yeah.
They just tick me off every time because I don't think most dads are like that, but there's a stereotype that you see on commercials where the dad's not engaged, the dad is dumb, the dad is always 5 steps behind. And that goes into people's brains.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden it comes out. I really do believe that there is some truth to you're like the 5 people you surround yourself with most. And if you're mostly around your TV getting negative ads or whatever you're putting into your brain, garbage in, garbage out. And, so you want to be careful with the friends you're surrounding yourself with, which you talked about. Mm-hmm. And then what's going into your brain otherwise. I mean, I watch the commercials because I've been in radio and I'm an ad guy and all that sort of stuff, and it just aggravates me. But how do you change that?
Mm-hmm.
Those messages that you're putting into your brain, and then what you're really saying to others about your marriage. You may have been able to change that conversation if you would have engaged and said something positive. I know you probably weren't in the mind space to do that at that specific
not
time.
at all.
And there were more negatives than positive, obviously, in that situation. But, if you can be intentional.
I wish now, looking back, that I would have had enough discernment to be able to go, hey, I'm going to speak some life into these situations and these conversations instead of just completely disengaging. And I just didn't. It just completely caught me off guard. And I just kind of ignored it, disengaged, and waited till they were done. But we have so much power in our words that we can speak into other people speaking negatively about their marriages or their spouses. And I'm not talking about when a friend comes to you confidentially and pours their heart out to you and says, oh my gosh, we're really struggling. I need help. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about more casual conversations with people where all of a sudden, next thing you know, you are saying negative things about what your husband or your kids do or your wife does. And you either jump into the conversation that's already happening or you even initiate the conversation. So really being aware of the power that we have when we're talking to other people about our marriage, about our families is really significant.
That is our tip and our trick for this marriage camp session. And we would love to hear from you. Again, if you want to send us a marriage question, we'll get back to our regular shows in the fall on air at stupendousmarriage.com. And we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.